Hey everyone, today we're going to see one of the most complicated chess game ever played in history. A game versus Mikhail TaL and Alexander Koblenz in 1957. Here, Mikhail TaL technically sacrificed all his pieces from pawn to queen, but Alexander Koblenz did not accept that sacrifice. The big question now is, why? So, let's find out by watching this game. In this game, TaL played white pieces and decided to use his favorite opening e4. But Alexander Koblenz already prepared for a long time for this kind of opening and used his favorite defense, a Sicilian defense c5 for this opening. TaL continued by moving his knight to f3. Koblenz respond pawn to d6. TaL offer pawn to d4. Koblenz accept and take it by pawn on c5, then TaL take it by the knight on f3. This is a typical exchange in Sicilian defense. So Koblenz move his knight to f6, TaL knight to c3, knight c6, bishop g5, pinning the knight, e6, queen d2, preparing to castle queenside. Black respond to be bishop e7, preparing to castle kingside. Then white castle, and then the black castle. The game continue. Knight move to b3. Black move his queen to b6. Pawn f3, a6. Now TaL decided whether to capture the pawn on d6 or just pushing the pawn on g4. By capturing the knight on f6, but TaL doesn't like that, so he decided to push on g4. Black respond to rook d8, supporting the pawn. Bishop e3, attacking the queen. Queen c7, h4, b5. Both white and black are attacking their opponent king. The white move pawn to g5, attacking the knight. Knight to d7. If you are TaL, how will you continue? TaL, without hesitation, push pawn to g6, offering for free. Koblenz accept it and take the sacrifice by taking this pawn. Again, TaL push pawn to h5. Koblenz take it again, then the rook take the pawn on h5. Now, the knight returned to f6, kicking the rook to h1, then d5. This is a very critical position for both black and white, but of course, TaL, as the king of sacrifice, he showed another fantastic move by sacrificing the pawn on e5. Without hesitation, his opponent accepted the sacrifice by taking it by the knight. Now, TaL moved his bishop to f4. Black responds to bishop d6. Now, queen h2, threatening to mate on h8. This is another critical position of the game, and Koblenz prepared for this position already. That's why he decided to move his king on f8. And TaL, without double thinking and hesitation, checked the king on hh. And of course, Koblenz prepared for this attack. He has two options by just moving the king on e7 or just placing the knight on g8. And of course, Koblenz chose the best, which is placing and blocking the queen check by the knight on g8. And he is planning to trap TaL's queen. But TaL does not care about this position. He moved his rook to h7, giving an opportunity for Koblenz to trap his queen on the corner on h8. After moving this rook to h7, Koblenz smiled to TaL, knowing that TaL's position is in trouble after moving his pawn to f5. But TaL already prepared for this crucial position and moved his bishop to h6, threatening for check. But Koblenz prepared for this for a long time. He just moved his rook to d7 and now planning to move his knight and threatening the queen. This is another critical position of the game, and if you are TaL, how will you continue playing this game? But TaL showed Koblenz how the king of tactics played chess. He takes without hesitation the pawn on b5. So now Koblenz has to decide whether to put his knight on g6 and capturing the queen of TaL, or saving the position. Now let us take a look what will happen if Koblenz still insists taking the queen on h8. After Koblenz moved his knight on g6, TaL moved his knight on d4. And after taking the queen on h8, TaL take the pawn on e5 and check. And this position is winning for TaL. Okay, back to our game. Koblenz know that this will happen, so he decided to move his rook to f7. TaL respond to rook g1, and Koblenz strengthened the support by moving his rook to a1. And now TaL is starting to move his knight to d4. Koblenz respond to knight g4, giving space for the bishop, but TaL take the sacrifice and takes the knight on g4. And now Koblenz decided to move his bishop to e5, attacking the knight as well as supporting the pawn, and TaL respond to move this knight to c6. Okay, giving this position, if you are Koblenz, what will you do? Either taking the bishop on b5 or taking the knight on c3. Koblenz decided to take the knight on c3. In this position, another incredible move shown by TaL by moving his bishop to e3. Okay, so let us take a look what will happen if Koblenz take the bishop on b5. After taking the bishop on b5, TaL move his bishop on c5, check, and take the rook on e7, and this position is winning for white. After deep analysis, Koblenz know that this will happen. That's why he decided to move his pawn to d4, attacking the bishop on e3. But this time, TaL shown his brilliant tactics in this game by moving his rook to h1, threatening for mate. What if Koblenz take the bishop on e3? So queen will take the knight on g8 and threatening for mate. So going back to our game, Koblenz decided to move his rook to d7, giving space for the king to escape. This time, TaL moved his bishop to g5, while Koblenz decided to take the bishop on b5. But this is a big mistake because another brilliant move was shown by TaL by moving and sacrificing his rook to h6. This position is really hopeless for black. Okay, so let us take a look what will happen if rook takes the pawn on a2. TaL will check the king by moving his rook to f6, and this is winning for white. So going back to our game, Koblenz decided to move the pawn on d3, and TaL decided to capture the bishop on c3. And after two moves in, Koblenz decided to resign. Okay, that's all for the day, and hoping you learn something from this game. And if you have queries or suggestions, please feel free to write in the comment section. And if you like this video, please do not hesitate to hit the subscribe button. It will help a lot. Thank you so much. See you on my next upload.